Hello, hello. Welcome to Tammy's Table. I am so excited that you pulled up a chair and joined me here today. Um, Somebody asked me over the weekend, why Tammy's Table? And I said I finally remember sitting at different kitchen tables throughout my life, and those tables were the heartbeat of a family. It was a place to gather, a place to talk, a place to reconnect, a place to learn things that you would never be taught in school. So I wanted to bring listeners back to that experience, and surrounded by a way that they could build resilience, so they can find a light in their darkest moments. Like we all go through moments. So every show we have guests on, or we talk about, things that you might be going through: divorce, dating, money matters, parenting, living with significant loss. So I am excited that you're here. My goal is for you to walk away with some really actionable items today. Um, and I want to introduce somebody who I consider a friend. Um, and you will know her as the love coach. Candice Harper is my guest today, and she's been on before. I love when she's on. She's a licensed and certified hypnotherapist and relationship coach. She specializes in helping high earning, influential women of color become irresistible to their soulmate. And I'm going to let Candy tell you a bit more about what you do, but can I just, first of all, hello and
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, my love. Thank you for having me again.
Super excited.
Yeah.
So tell me, my first question is, how did you get into this line of work? Like, how did you become a love coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always say I have this sort of formula for purpose. I believe that your purpose is where your talents and your passions meet your challenges, right? So throughout my life, I actually was in a TV career for a long time. I was a costume designer, an art director, piano bar singer, all different professions I've had through my adult life. But one thing that always rang true was ever since I was very, very young, I've been obsessed with love and romance. And also, I've always had a tumultuous relationship with my mother. And I also had challenges with relating and getting to know people and causing intimate connections in my life. But the thing is that I also had this talent for not just learning things, but teaching people things and, being able to talk about things in a way that I could have people understand. So when I got laid off from my whole long TV career, there was just this pull within me. I was working at the Wendy Williams show. I always say it was like Black Barbie's dream house. And even though I was having a lot of fun, I wasn't doing a lot for the world. And so there was this pull that said, it's time to get purposeful. Like, how can you make a difference for people? And unknowingly through that formula, I was like, you know what? I'm a good talker. I'm good at solving other people's problems, and I need to be solving my own as well. And I started on this journey of like, going to training and personal growth, personal development, learning how to become a hypnotherapist, getting certified, all that stuff. I came up against all my own stuff.
Hmm.
And the more I learned, the more I grew, the more I realized that I can bring people along and I can help them from wherever they're at. And it just evolved into now here I am.
Look at you. That is a great and very inspiring story. Like for people that are out there, moving through the world without purpose. That
Yeah.
is a like a soul swallowing experience.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that story is great. So let's get into it. So today we are going to be talking basically the name of the show is We Finally Spoke.
Mm.
From friction to freedom with the strong woman who raised you.
Hmm.
So, and not only can I relate to this topic, I live this topic.
Yeah.
I've had a tumultuous relationship with my mom since I was about 6, if you
Yeah.
could believe it. Like, what can a 6-year-old do to have a bad relationship with their mom? So I'm 56 now. So for the last 50 years, I've been dealing with
Yeah.
a very difficult relationship. I don't, I went to therapy. I've done a lot of therapy around it. I haven't recently. Um, but I'm wondering, like maybe, and I'm also single and, looking.
Yeah.
So does the mother-daughter relationship have an influence on our love life? And if so, how?
Yeah. That's a good question. It
She messing
100.
up, she's messing up my dating situation.
She's she is. Unbeknownst to her.
Yeah.
And for some mothers and for some women who have tumultuous relationships with their mothers, sometimes their mother does know that's what they're doing. Sometimes there is a sabotage going on, but for the most part, it's an unbeknownst thing. Like we don't even realize how insidious it is when our resentment or our challenges and complex layers get in the way. We don't even realize the connection. But the reason that it does have an impact, the reason that it influences so much is because while our fathers tend to represent and influence how we be with other people, our mothers influence who we are with ourselves, whether it's through modeling or the things she says to us, whatever the dynamic is. It's a heavy, heavy influence on our self relationship. And our self relationship affects our relationship with everything else, right?
Right.
Other people, other things, and definitely our love life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, how do you sort of overcome that? Like, so in my situation, my mom's never going to apologize for
Mm,
anything that's gone on in the past, and there's been some bad stuff that she was responsible for.
yeah.
I'm not expecting an apology. I'm not expecting like a kumbaya with her, like let's
Yeah.
hold hands and like be a loving mother-daughter. So how do you overcome that piece with you talked about, healing yourself or within yourself.
Yeah.
If there's no opportunity to repair or build that bridge, like then what do you do?
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, even if she's like my mother passed away 2 years ago, even if she's no longer with us, you can find this peace. And I can tell you this, the first step is understanding that to expect an apology is fruitless.
Hmm.
Right? There may be some mothers out there that do, but to need the apology and to think it's coming and to keep setting yourself up for she's going to somehow see the error of her ways and turn around and make it all better, that in itself, like as soon as you release that, you're on the road to it, right? First
Hmm.
step. The second step is I love that you went to a clinician and I went to a clinician. I think it's so important to talk to a clinician just to get into the conversation of self awareness, right? If for nothing else. And a lot of times, what a clinician can offer is I can be more of an observer and not just be in this identity of having a horrible mother.
Right,
Right. And so,
right.
once I've gotten to that point where I'm like, I get it. I know I can't change her. And I get that I can't just walk around, being in a victim state about it. Then that's when people come to me. It's a perfect time to come to me because then what we work on is, although I'm not responsible for who she is or who she was or how she even is today, what I am responsible for is my response and my reaction to it, what I make it
Right.
mean and what practices I can put in place so that I can experience all of it differently. Like I get to alchemize it within myself, whether she wants to move or not.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how was it when you're and if this is too personal, then just tell me.
Oh, not at all.
But
I share.
um when your mom passed,
Yeah.
what was your reaction? Did you have like a sense of like there was something unresolved, or were you peaceful, or
Yeah. I can
obviously it was sad, but
Yeah, I can tell you that when she passed, I was so peaceful by the time she passed. And so my trajectory with my mother is in the few years before she started to have signs of dementia, I was in the work around
hmm.
healing and around how I perceived her. I was in a women's healing group with one of my mentors, and I got to a really deep understanding of how she didn't know how to give me a rite of passage, and how I've spent most of my life thinking that I was exactly who she decided I was.
Hmm.
Right. And once I started to get an awareness of that and be in that healing space, she started to get symptoms of dementia. So then I had to also grieve that there's probably never going to be a lucid conversation where she gets that I have this healing
Right.
and come to a peace with that, a resolution with that. And as she was in her this stage of life where I was grieving who she used to be and what was going to be inevitable, which was going to be her passing. Obviously, we all die, so that's
Hmm.
coming. What I found was that it became easier and easier for me to focus more on when I'm dealing with her, understanding who she is, so that when I'm not dealing with her, I can be an understanding of who I am peacefully. No guilt,
Hmm.
no more like being under the influence of what I'm supposed to do
Right.
You know what I mean? Like she used to always say to me, especially if she was mad at me, honor thy father and mother and your days will be long. Like she'd throw the Bible at you if you weren't doing what she wanted you to do.
Well, there's no risk of that happening in my family, but
No, well, I mean, whatever they use, like different families have different ways to control, right?
yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
you know, that was one of those things where, like, as I eased my resentment around her, it eased that guilt. I stopped feeling like I'm doing something wrong, like doing something wrong by getting to know myself and understand myself, and doing something wrong by getting to know her. Like, I was able to release all of that, and I was able to take my own rite of passage. And that's the
Yeah.
important thing is because when she doesn't know how to give it to you, it's very important to take it, to be able to say, I'm from you physically and biologically, but I get to decide who I am. I get to
Hmm.
approve of myself. I don't have to wait for
Right.
your approval. It's that
Right.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so deep because so I didn't talk to my mom for 4 years.
Yeah.
Um and we just don't talk very often. And for me, when I was doing the work, when I was, seeing a therapist and really like letting go, and I did all sorts of alternative everything to let go of like those cords that she had put inside of me that attached me to her, that like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not, all of those things. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, how do you feel about boundaries as a means of dealing with, this tumultuous relationship?
I think they're important for while you're in the depths of your healing, right? I think,
Yeah.
you know, let's say you're someone out there right now and you haven't seen a clinician yet, and you're not really sure what to do, you haven't done any ayahuasca ceremony, you haven't done any of that stuff, and that's maybe the journey that you're choosing to take, you know, meditation, yoga, whatever it is to try to find the peace. I think that it's okay to set boundaries of separation, right? With the knowing that I will be in my highest space of healing when I no longer have to separate myself.
Right.
Right? When I get to a point where I can be unstoppable and, excuse my French, unfuckwithable
Yeah,
and be in the same room with her, then I know that I'm
exactly.
at the pinnacle of my healing, that I've gotten there.
Yeah.
And it's not about the kumbaya and, you know, we're wonderful. It's when I'm with her, I'm authentic and I'm okay with saying what's on my mind because I no longer have to punish her with it. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got to a
that-
point with my mother where, and I did the same thing. We had, like, that's why the title of the event is We're Finally Speaking. Like, we had chunks of time throughout my adulthood where I would ignore her phone calls. I
Yep.
just would not talk to her. And she had that same way when I was growing up. If she was angry, she would shut you out, like, not speak
Yes.
to you. It's like
Take
you
away the
disappear.
love. Yep.
Yeah. Like
Withholding
kicked
love.
off the island, right? Which,
Yeah.
especially as a child, we're all afraid of that, right?
Yeah, I think you make such a great point because I do like the last time I was with her was like at a family thing. So there was a bunch of people around, but I made the effort. I felt like I was standing in my power. And
Mm.
that's where I think like people have to get to. In looking at the relationship, and also like what's my role? Like I was definitely snarky
100%.
and definitely talk back.
Yeah.
Um, as I got older, I started
Yeah.
speaking up for myself. Didn't have good outcome, by the way, but I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. No, I get that. And as women of color particularly, speaking up for yourself often doesn't have a good outcome. But, one thing I teach is that that's something that we have to begin to alchemize as well. Like that's something that we have to be able to just know. Like speaking up for myself is more important than what the outcome is going to be. And speaking up
Right.
for myself in an authentic way, like not being petty, not being bitchy, not trying to hurt someone. But when it
Hmm.
came to my mother, what I found was even though, like, through her dementia and through the different issues that she was dealing with around aging and things like that, when I was real with her, she got me. The more real I was, as long as I wasn't trying to beat her over the head with it or punish her, and
Right.
as long as I stopped coming from that place of that you're responsible for every mistake I've made, which was my adult energy for a long time. When I
Mm.
was just truthful and real, like mom, you can't say that. That doesn't work. Like if you want us to get along, you have to talk to me in a different way. She got it.
Wow.
Yeah. And she picked up like it didn't have her do what she used to do when I needed the apology from her, when I needed her to get me, when I needed her to give me her approval, the way that I would communicate with her, whether I was faking nice or whether I was coming out of a bag, like I was going to tell her off, no matter how I did it, I got that same sort of resistance, that same block.
Yeah.
right? But I
Yeah.
will tell you the biggest hump that I had to get over is my understanding of forgiveness. That was the
Yeah.
biggest hump that had me get to a place where I could release. And I think the one thing that we, especially if you were like, I was raised Christian, but even if you weren't, I think sometimes there's this idea that forgiveness is being like Jesus and pretending like you were never hurt. And that's
Yeah. Or
not,
it never happened.
or it never happened. And that's why
Hmm.
so many people struggle with it. That's
Yeah.
why I teach with my clients a whole forgiveness process. And it's really just about how do I take responsibility for who I be so that I can take my power back and not keep putting the choices that I'm now making on who she made me be. Like how do I
Right.
make that leap? And that's what a real forgiveness process is.
You're so awesome, girl. Um,
Thank you.
we're gonna take a quick break. And when we come back, though, I want to do a deeper dive into how this impacts our relationships.
Yeah. Mother's Day is almost here, so what do you do when it's time to celebrate the woman who you're supposed to honor, cherish, and love the most? But every time you deal with her, you find yourself exhausted, overwhelmed, beaten down, and pouring too many cocktails. I'm Candice Harper, a relationship coach and hypnotherapist. You join me live online May 1st or May 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Eastern for We're Finally Speaking From Freedom to Friction with the Strong Woman Who Raised You. Complimentary tickets are available on Eventbrite.
Nice. Do you think if I sent my mom a ticket, she would go?
I don't know. She might. Because
She
here's the
will not.
thing. The worst mothers had the worst mothers.
But no, my grandmother was amazing. But
Yeah, to
apparently,
you. To you,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
I always say for every abusive mother, there's also within the same body an abused daughter. And so, like when we look at our, because I had a great relationship with my grandma too. We called her Fat Mama. I loved Fat Mama. But if
Oh
you
my
would
God.
ask my mom about her, you would have gotten a
Yes.
completely different story. Yeah.
Yep. That's same with my mom. She's like, you didn't grow up with her. I'm like, all right, I'll take that.
Right.
Um, okay, so let's talk about from the lens of relationships, those that work and those that don't work, and sort of the elements. Like, how do you think having a tenuous relationship with your mom shows up in your relationships, like very specifically?
Yeah, so if you're in a space where you're still under the weight of that relationship with her, that also means that um you're in what is familiar to you, right? So you know how to deal with a certain way, how she treats you, what she taught you about energy and dynamics, how to communicate when you're in an intimate relationship, all of that, she influences all of that. And when we're under the weight of the resentment and feeling like somehow it was wrong or something's wrong with her or something's wrong with me, we look for partners that are a space for that. Like our partners that we hook up with, they mirror back to us our relationship with ourselves, right? So if I'm the girl who has the tumultuous relationship with her mother and I'm feeling a certain way about myself, I'm putting pressure on myself that I got to be perfect or I got to reach a certain level or that I'm not valuable for love unless I'm meeting her approval. What I'm looking for is that energy without even knowing it. I'm a space for that
Mm,
energy from partners. And I can tell you for me, the most abusive relationship that I was in was based on me being at the pinnacle of that, feeling like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't good enough for what I really wanted. And so I
mhm.
invited someone into my life who fit right in with that, like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And his energy was all not good enough. Like this is wrong with you, that's
Yep.
wrong with you. And I'm not, I wasn't like a quiet victim. We were mixing it up together.
Well,
But
that's good.
right, but all that came from being in that energy and not having released and healed the identity of having this, what I was calling a horrible mother at the time.
It's so interesting. I did one of my therapy sessions or, stints was imago therapy, which is
Mm,
basically says that everything goes back to your childhood
yeah, I
as an
agree with
adult.
that.
So
Yeah.
they said, I will never forget, they said we married the best of our dad and the worst of our mom.
Ah,
And that is exactly what I did. Just what you said about that energy.
yeah, yeah,
It's weird. And I was not at like my strongest at that point.
yeah,
Although I knew I was making like a bad wedding decision.
yeah.
He mirrored exactly my mom. It was crazy.
Because you knew what to do with him. Even if it felt like, even the times that you probably said to yourself, "Ugh, I don't like this." There was that part of you that was like, yeah, but we know what to do with it. Like we know how to
Yeah,
handle it.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say? Let's say like someone's still in process, like still in the healing process.
Yeah.
Can you give, first of all, I know you do hypnotherapy, which I think is wonderful and a great potential solution.
Mm,
But if we're, someone's listening to this and they're in the thick, they want to get out from under this, burden of having a bad relationship with their mom.
mm.
What are some really specific steps that somebody could take?
Well, I
Um,
mean, first of all, you can't do any of it without support.
yeah.
Right. So the most specific step to take is to find someone trusted, someone, whether it be by referral or somebody who's saying the things that are resonating with what you're feeling and, offering solutions that sound right to you. Find the support and then just be willing to, um, a lot of times our ego, they always say there's two emotions, fear or love, and
Mhm.
ego runs fear, right? Ego is all about fear. They work together really great. Ego will tell you that you got to, guard yourself, that you got to hide, that you got to figure out some way to stuff it down. Don't deal with it. Don't heal it. Just set boundaries and walk away and, get in your little enclave and be in solitude. So just understand that I might be in a space right now where my ego is telling me that this will never work. I will never be out from under it. I'm never going to be able to heal it. And just my willingness to observe myself for a moment and just understand that this is just what I'm believing right now.
Mhm. It's a point in time.
It's a point in time. Nothing lasts forever. This is what I believe in this moment. And so if
Mhm.
I just give myself permission to get the support I need and allow someone to offer me things and try them on. I always say in coaching, because sometimes you come up with resistance. We're so used to doing what we do all the time, right?
Right,
So I
right.
always say, try it on. Just give it a
Mhm.
moment, try it on, see how it feels. You can always pick back up the old stuff later if you want to.
Right.
And the more we're willing to practice and not expect ourselves to be a light switch, like oftentimes we think, oh, well, now I know this thing, I should be doing better. And if we make a mistake, we're really hard on ourselves.
Right.
When really it's just, you know what? For 5 minutes right now, I'm just going to practice the peace of knowing that my mother loves me and I love her, even if I have no evidence whatsoever.
Mhm.
Just 5 minutes, I'm just going to practice what that peace feels like. Right. And if I allow myself to do that, maybe 5 more minutes the next day, 5 more minutes the next day, and then start to let your natural inclination to love and forgive and take care of yourself, let that start to take over and practice it more and more and more with the support of whoever's leading you, guiding you through it, then that's how
Mhm.
you get to it. And we evolve, right? One day you wake up and you're like, it's like weight loss. One day you wake up and you're like, wow. Like last year, I felt like crap. I was so depressed. And this year, it's like it's a weight is lifted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it does feel like a weight is lifted. Like when you I'm gonna say turn the corner, right?
Yeah.
When you
I like that.
turn the corner, when I told you I feel like I was standing in my power, I was like, look at me.
Yeah.
Like I am not, like you said, like it's like this giant weight is lifted and it opens up space, I think, in your heart and in your life to
Uh,
invite other people in that are potentially more positive and more supportive. And, sometimes you have to weed your garden.
Because you're absolutely right. Because when you get to that advanced place where you do feel the weight has lifted, you then get to declare who you get to be.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether I had a tumultuous past with my mother, who I get to be today is this amazing woman who helps people and says how it's going to go for myself, right? Who
Yeah.
lives into the experience of what I want to align with because that's what I choose. And that's what I got to choose before she passed. I got to
Right.
choose to be a daughter who's happy with her mother just because I had released all that old stuff and said, you know what, this is what I'm choosing because this actually helps me feel better. This actually helps me to see you in a light that makes it that I have power, that I can do the
Yes,
things that I want
absolutely.
to do, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's in
the kids online, they always say Delulu is the Salulu. So it's like that little bit of delusion where I'm like, how I see it, how I perceive it is going to be what it's going to be either way. And I can never be 100% right. So why not perceive it in a way that's going to actually support me in being who I want to be?
Yeah, I think
Right?
that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to my little brother yesterday. So my mom just had knee replacement surgery, and you know, she can't really walk, like she's hobbling around. They had to hire somebody to come and cook.
Mm.
And I said to her, like, we were all together in person, and I was like, I could work from anywhere. Like, I can come. They live in like an hour and a half. I was like, I can bring my laptop and stay for a couple of days and cook and make sure, you're okay when you first get home. And for the first time, she looked grateful.
Yeah.
Um, she said no, of course, but what was interesting, my brother was like, I can't believe you offered. I was like,
Mm.
Derek, I'm not mad at mom anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that stuff anymore. Like, she needs help. I'm gonna go help her.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like the external also perception is like, wow, you called mom? Wow, like there's a whole group of people that are like on eggshells. Um, but it goes back to what you said. I think when you get to the top of that mountain,
Yeah.
you just decide you're never going back,
You don't want
and
to go back, right? When you've
good
been
place to
practicing
sit.
it long enough and you've just made the choice that I'm going to live into who I say I be, not who you say I be, then all of a
Yeah,
sudden I'm not under the influence of who you were or how you were.
right.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's circle back
Yeah.
to you were talking about how we pick a partner basically to fit the gaps that our mother like left somehow.
Mm.
How can you become more aware if you're doing that? So for people that are out there dating and they're, sorting right now,
Yeah.
is there a red flag that you can say like, "Uh-oh, this feels like I am picking somebody because they're like my mom."
Yeah. I
How do you
mean,
manage through
I
that?
always say that we have to be, say that again. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
was just wondering like how you manage through that process successfully.
Yeah.
Not picking your mom.
I think that what you're pointing at is discernment, right? And so, what I often guide people with, as far as discernment is concerned, is that when you're in a healing relationship with yourself and in your single season, one of the things that's so important is to really get a deep understanding around what is important to you, what brings you pleasure, what aligns with having joy, whatever it is you're declaring for yourself, right? And those can be anything, whatever it is. So, whether it's time with your kids or, taking travel vacations or whatever, like just getting into an understanding of what works. That way, it's not about being able to look at someone and say, oh, you're just like my mom. It's about being able to really be in touch with your gut moment to moment and present with people.
Hmm.
Right. So when I'm present with you and we're just in this moment, it's not about, who what I've been through or what I've perceived or whether I need to detect the red flags. All I got to listen to is what my gut tells me. Right. When I'm
Yeah.
interacting with you and having a conversation, does this feel like it aligns with who I declare myself to be? Do I feel
Hmm.
like this person, just talking to this person, does it support who I declare myself to be? Do I feel at ease? Do I feel like I can be myself and be authentic? Or do I find myself feeling like I got to go into some pretend persona or,
Hmm.
tell lies or guard myself?
Right.
Like you just got to be willing to ask the question to yourself and then
Yourself.
discern whether I want to keep aligning with this person. Does this work for me to align with this person? And it's okay if it doesn't. Sometimes we get on dates and it's not working and we get mad. You know, like I
I
got
get
all
mad because I
dressed up.
wasted my time.
Yeah, and it's so not. That's the thing. I always tell women when you're dating, even the worst of dates, I mean, as long as you don't feel in danger, it's never a waste of your time. Because what you get to do is be practicing your healing, practicing being in a space of being so full of you that you know how to overflow onto someone even when they're not your person. Like
Yeah.
you know how to listen and hear who they are and be okay with it. You don't have to be in alignment with me because my person is.
Yeah, my bad dates are just good material for comedy.
There's that
So
too.
that I'm collecting stories. I'm just collecting stories about like terrible dates.
Yeah.
Um,
And you'll have way more bad ones than, bad ones than the ones that culminate in a relationship because that's just how it is, right? We don't
yeah.
match with everybody.
So I feel like I know what you're gonna say, but let's just put it out there.
Mm,
Let's say that somebody mostly matches who I want to be and how I want to, walk my path.
yeah.
And then I'm gonna compromise. There's a couple of things I don't really like, but maybe I'll just compromise on those.
There's always going to be a couple things you don't really like. right? But you got to think about, and one of the things that I do with clients is I do a core value declaration exercise. It's like a meditation. When you can get to what are the most important things, like your three, three or four base most important things, and they align with those things in a strong way that that you can be aligned with those things. I think you and I were talking about, support for what I do, like support for my purpose. For me, that
Right.
was a really, really big core value with anyone that I'm with. Right?
Right.
Somebody who can say, I really want to see you succeed. I want to see you win. And so
Absolutely.
think of those things. Someone who, family is a really important core value for me. When they
Hmm.
match those things, don't worry about those other things, because when you match those main core values and there's love there and they see you authentically, see you, love, and accept you,
Hmm.
forgive the faults and praise the wins and the strength and all of that, that those other things, they can evolve and grow. And I'm not saying to try to change that person, but
Hmm.
just out of the affinity that you have for each other. Like me and my partner now, we've been together, it'll be 2 years in June. And so one of the things is that health wise we eat very differently, and in the time that we've been together, that was always one of my concerns. It's like he's got all the other things, but I hate the way he eats. And I have to eat healthier and I can't have so much sugar. And in the beginning, I started to stress about it a little bit. And then I realized it's just about conversation. That here's a man who's got the base things. So through communication, he never lets the refrigerator be without salads and avocados, because he knows that that's what I need. And I didn't have to demand it or force it or be mean. Like, we just had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
what happens is, as you grow affinity, you start to find that the things that might have seemed like they were incompatible aren't really so incompatible. It's just they just needed communication.
They need a little buffing around the edges.
Buffing around the
We need to
edges.
smooth it out.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about relationship. It's relating. Like, we oftentimes think we're supposed to go into it and it be perfect and we're going to be wonderful forever. But
Mm.
that's what relating is about. We're creating a partnership, we're collaborating. Any community that you go into, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be differences of opinion, differences in how you do things. And it's like, how do we come together on that and still be, healthy human beings that don't
Right.
make it, the end of the world?
You must be a pleasure to date
Oh, I'd
because you
like
have
to
all the
think so.
answers. You have like a great approach. Um,
I am a fun date, and not for the reasons that
that
some
you've told us
might
in the
say.
past,
Yeah, exactly.
not for your past
Not
missteps.
for
Okay,
past reasons.
we're gonna leave those in the
Not for my college age reasons.
yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah,
all grown up now. You're all grown up.
exactly.
Okay, let me ask this question. This is like a big bombshell question.
Sure.
Um, what's the one thing that we constantly avoid but absolutely need to do to get out from a relationship that's not working so we can move on, I like to say like make space.
Yeah.
Um, what's your answer to that?
So what I love is I've already touched on it in secret in the conversation, and it's a quality forgiveness process. We got to open up what we know forgiveness to be. And that's why I do what I do, because I'm a guide in a forgiveness process that actually works, not just, turn your cheek, be like Jesus, like a forgiveness process that works. As soon as we open ourselves up to that, like, for some people, and, I've dealt with clients and even women in groups where it's like the F word. Like, why should I forgive? It was horrible what they did, because we have a framing of forgiveness that doesn't work. That's
Hmm.
the thing. Once you can do that, it doesn't matter where you are in any relationship. When you can forgive yourself in a way that's a responsible process, and when you can forgive others, not make it okay, not say, whatever you did to me, it's fine, but really understand the process of taking responsibility for what I chose when you did what you did,
Right.
and what I continued to choose after you did what you did, because of what I was believing about what you did. Soon as I can get aware of that and do that process and then start to practice a new declaration for myself, I can shift any relationship. And whether that means the relationship ends and gets complete or goes forward and gets healthy, whatever it might be, I can make that happen just by doing that process.
So can you talk about the process a bit? High
Yeah.
level?
Yeah. So it's sort of a
And
six, it's,
and Candy, one sec. This is part of your coaching practice, right?
yes.
Okay. So talk to me about your coaching practice. Like what is the process without giving away your secret sauce?
All of it. Well, I mean, this is probably the most pivotal part. Sometimes it's the most pivotal part. Sometimes people have already gotten a few steps in, and that's great because then we can keep moving forward and start creation and all of that stuff. But initially, when I start with people, not only do we get really clear about what's been, like, who have I been leading up to this in my dating life, in my relationship life, we start to pinpoint who is it besides, and it's always myself first, but
Hmm.
besides myself, who I really need to do this process with. And it's a 6 step process. It's, the first thing that you have to do is just acknowledge who this person is, the way that you've been viewing this person. And then you have to talk about how you've been based on what you believe about whatever you think this person has done. And even if it's like your mother, a lifelong, throughout my childhood, you did this. And so the second part is acknowledging this is who I've been, this is how I've been based on believing this about you. Right?
Hmm.
And then I got to talk about what the impact on my life has been. Because I've been this, I've, picked all due to been in jail. I've been,
Yeah.
in abusive relationships one after another, or I've been
Right.
lonely for 10 years and refusing to let anybody into my life. Whatever it might be, talk about the impact. And then
Hmm.
I got to pare it down. And this is where it gets to be the hardest part. And that's why we go through the coaching and the support that I give. I got to pare it down to what it really is, which is just simply, you're my mother, I'm your daughter. Everything else is perspective. Everything that
Mm.
I perceived about how you behaved, everything that I decided about what you said, what you did to me, all of that is perspective. The way that you saw me, the opinions that you cast on me, the way you talk to me, all of it is just perspective. And I get to make it mean whatever I choose to make it mean. So we narrow it all down to just that. And then I get to declare something new. I get to talk about what's possible when I no longer have to be underneath these beliefs. When I no longer have to believe that what you did was because you hate me, not because you hate yourself.
Mm. Oh
Right?
my
When I
God,
no
that's so
longer
deep.
am carrying, right? When I'm no longer carrying that, who do I get to be? Like, how do I get to create my love life? How do I get to create my life, my career? So much more is possible because I'm no longer under the weight of I'm the girl whose mother hates her. I'm the girl
Hmm.
whose mother beat her, whatever it might be. And I know sometimes it can get really traumatic, but that's the work we do. Then I declare something new for myself. That's the 6th step. I get to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm living into. And I begin that practice I was talking about that sometimes takes, a few weeks and sometimes takes a year. There's no,
Hmm.
limit on how far it can
Yeah.
go. But
I was gonna ask how long, but there's no answer. I think that it depends how like deep,
yeah,
right, the work is. Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
so listen, while we're talking about your work, like let's talk about your upcoming class.
Yeah. So
I
on
want to hear all about it.
Wednesday night, May 1st, 2024, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're finally speaking from freedom to friction with the strong woman who raised you. And basically, I'm just going to elucidate, like, what this process is about and why it's important, why it's an important relationship to look at. I find that through my clients and women that I work with as women of color, it is a particular, and it's not unique to just us because there's throughout the diaspora and all the European communities, I get the same sort of kickback around their relationship with their mother. But I'm basically going to be talking about what are those first practical steps to be taking and why to even take them. A lot of what we've talked about right here, and I'm going to do a little exercise to help people get maybe a, a, a glimpse of sort of immediate relief from it, especially if it's been really
Hmm.
pressuring you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
excited. That is a great topic. I can list off like 20 people that I need to forward that invitation to.
Please do, by all means. And
No,
because
I
spots are
will.
limited, so yeah, definitely do.
Yeah, they need Dr. Love. I know that, especially around this conversation about moms. So
Yeah,
listen, it was such a pleasure having you. I feel like we had a really great conversation and you gave actionable steps that people can like really sink their teeth into, which is always the goal, not just to listen, but to take some action
absolutely.
afterwards. So you are coming back next month, and I
Yes.
can't wait with another giant topic that'll wreck people's Monday.
I hope so. I want to like mix it up.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna mix it up.
Turn it on its
Um,
head.
so awesome. Hey, tell us your website or where people can go to get more information. I know we have the commercial.
Yeah, so if you want to get direct tickets to the event, go to Eventbrite and just search "We're Finally Speaking." But also, you can come to my website, CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com. I'll make, I don't think there's a link on there for the event yet, but I'm going to do that today. But go to CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com just to learn more about what I do and kind of look at some of the other offers that I have that are possible. But
Awesome.
Eventbrite is where to get the tickets. We're Finally Speaking.
And we are speaking, and we have spoke. We have
Yes.
spoken.
And we will again and again. I love
And we
it.
will again. So listen,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you to the listeners for pulling up a chair and tuning into Tammy's Table. I hope you found as much value today as I did. Candace Harper, absolutely wonderful. And we will see you back here next Monday at noon. Have a
Yay.
great week.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.